Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Friday. It's Daryl here. It is bright and freaking early, man. It's 3:30 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, today is Friday and it's another busy Friday for me. I try to set up a schedule where I finish a certain amount of work, especially paintings. In a 1 week by Friday, I try to get a certain amount of work done by Friday each week. And every Friday I'm behind on my goal, and so my Fridays are very busy. So that being said, I've got a video for this morning, and I'll probably do another one later this afternoon. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. The Army private who ran into North Korea. I don't know. I think a lot of people find a little something humorous in this, that North Korea didn't want him, and I've seen these posts on Facebook about. I forgot what they said. Something about how messed up do you have to be that North Korea won't even take you, or I forgot how the jokes go. But there's people getting laughs at Private Travis King's expense. Here's the story. I'm going to go over it really quick. It's kind of weird. I want to just talk about it quick, and then of course I have a story to share about myself, because this reminds me of a specific incident where I left the country at 12 years old, and I could not get back into the United States. I was on my own. It's a true story. My family still, this story was like, this every time there's a family reunion or something, this is a big story, a big laugh. Remember when Daryl couldn't get back into the United States when he was 12 years old? A big laugh. Okay, so let's get into this really quick. Private Travis King, now supposedly he got in a fight. He was on his way to be disciplined in Texas when he ran into North Korea. And I believe his uncle said that he was experiencing racism in the Army, which doesn't surprise me one bit. That part of this story makes complete sense to me. And here's the messed up thing. I guess he didn't have many choices, because he was like they were taking him back to Texas. He was waiting for a flight to come back to Texas before he ran into North Korea, and he was near the border, and he saw this as a chance to try something new, to change his fortune. I don't know. So he ran into North Korea. Now, I thought about this. Now, I didn't even bother trying to Google how many African American or how many black people are in North Korea, but I'm going to guess that it's pretty much close to zero, because there's no tourism except maybe with China or Cuba, maybe Russia. But I highly doubt that there's very many black people in North Korea, if any. I mean, there's got to be a couple, but a black person would be a novelty in North Korea, I would imagine. North Korean people, Asian people are a little shorter, and I just imagine that he would stick out. He would be an oddity in North Korea. I don't know how in his mind he pictured this going. That he would live some, or maybe it was just a spur of the moment bad decision where he didn't think things were going to get any better in the Army. He was going back to be disciplined, and he just threw the dice. It doesn't seem like a very wise. It seems like the old saying, jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire kind of thing. That's what it reminds me of. But this is interesting too. The way he came back to the United States, the way North Korea said, we don't want this guy. And they handed him over, and it's kind of interesting the route that he took to get back into U.S. hands. Okay, so North Korea said that this is what North Korea stated, that in Pyongyang, you have to forgive me, I have a hard time pronouncing a lot of American names, so I'm probably going to murder these Chinese names. They said he was disillusioned with society in America, with racism. Okay, so they decided to hand him back. They took him, the North Korean officials took him to the border of North Korea and China and handed him over to China. Okay, from there, he met U.S. Ambassador to China, Nicholas Burns, and then went from Dandong, China, to Shenyang, China. Then from there to Osan Air Base in South Korea. So if you picture this, South Korea, North Korea, and China over here, they took him in a big circular route. Instead of going from here to here, he went, like all the way around from China, a couple stops up in China, then around to back down to South Korea. Instead of a couple miles across from South Korea to North Korea. It's just amazing. It kind of amazes me the way countries handle things when they don't get along. It's just this, the bureaucracy, I guess. It just amazes me, the pointlessness of it all. Doing things by this official bureaucratic method, it just seems pointless. But anyway, so he is headed back to. Oh no, this was Wednesday. He's already back in U.S. territory. He's in San Antonio, Texas. He was flown to an air base in San Antonio, Texas, and he's, I believe it's a hospital in San Antonio, Texas. So that's where he sits. I started thinking this too. There's a lot of technology nowadays, especially with China and everything. So when he crosses over into North Korea, what would they think? What do we do with this private? And I started. This would make a great movie. Imagine if they put some kind of recording technology, inside his body, because now with Elon Musk, you have the neural net and all this other stuff where, there's actually people are going to have biochip or chips in their head or whatever. Imagine if they put some kind of spyware in him, right? And then maybe that's why they hand him back, so they load him up with spyware and give him back to the United States, and then say, now he's in a U.S. air base in Texas, and he could be, wouldn't that'd make a great movie, wouldn't it? Okay, anyway. Okay, so that's the story now, and like I said, I think he's kind of, unfortunately, he's become the butt of a lot of jokes on Facebook and other media media outlets. Okay, so here's the story. My family is from, I've told you guys before, I'm French Canadian and Native American, Micmac, from the very top of Maine. My family is from Van Buren. If you look on the map, Van Buren is it's pretty much a French-speaking town in the very top of Maine. I remember going there, and they speak French at McDonald's, and it's not the regular French, like Parisian French that I learned in high school. It's Canadian French. It's a Canadian French. My mother spoke Canadian. She spoke English as a second language, and now she still goes, Daryl, are you home? Can you come? Can you come over, Daryl? She talks like that. My grandmother even more. But anyway, they were from Van Buren, a very small town. If you look on the map, it's a very, very tip top of Maine, Presque Isle, Caribou, Maine. It's about 12 hours from here where I am in Connecticut. And it's on the border. You can see the St. John River. You can see Canada from where my grandmother's house was. And unfortunately, my grandmother's passed away now. But you could see the Canada. So I went there at 12 years old. I remember it was a few years after the bicentennial, 1976. 1976, I was 10 years old. And I remember having a shirt. This plays a role in this. I had a bicentennial shirt, and it had the Lincoln Memorial on it. The Lincoln Memorial, Washington Monument. I had all the, it was red, white, and blue. It was a bicentennial shirt. Everybody had them back in 1976 if you're my age. So this was a couple of years later, in 1978, in the summer. So my mother went to visit her mother in the very top of Maine, in Van Buren, Maine. And I'm up there, and there's not a whole lot to do in this little French-Canadian, well, it's in the United States, but it's pretty much all French-Canadian speaking. And so I borrowed my uncle's bike. And my uncle, by the way, to me, he always looked like the actor that played the Native American in Young Guns. I can't remember his name now. But anyway, I borrowed his bike. And I always had a thing for fireworks back then. And I thought that fireworks were legal in Canada. So I'm riding around this little town, very top of Maine, 12 years old, on my uncle's borrowed 10 speed. And I get the idea that I'm going to ride into Canada and see if I can get myself some fireworks. 12. You see the issues I already had going all the way back to 12 years old with illegal substances and stuff. So anyway, I go across the bridge. There's no problem going from the United States into Canada. Nobody says a word. There's the border, the border building on one side, the border building on the other side, and the bridge going over the St. John River. And I just ride the 10 speed across, and I started riding around Canada looking for fireworks. I didn't find any fireworks. It was a very disappointing trip. And so I turned around. I think it was after maybe an hour or two, and I rode went across the bridge coming back into the United States, and there was a problem. I went by the Canadian side, I went by the Canadian building, and then I came to the American side, and the guards, the U.S. officials ran out and stopped me. I still remember one of the U.S. border guards standing right in front of my 10-speed with his legs, like holding my bike, with his legs on either side, the front wheel of my 10-speed, like right in my face. And he's like, "Where are you from? What country are you from?" And I'm wearing a bicentennial shirt, but it almost looks suspicious because I almost look too American. And I'm from the United States, and I started getting really scared. And when you're scared, you start to, I forget where I was born and where, and all this other, what are you doing here if you're from Connecticut, and all these other questions. And they eventually let me, 12-year-old boy on a bicycle, come back in, and my parents, my grandparents had no idea that I wasn't even in the country at this point. They thought I went to McDonald's, and here I was in another country, and not able to get back into the United States on my own. That's the story there. It just reminded me of running into another country and not being able to get back in. All right, that's the video for this morning. I hope you enjoyed it. There'll be a link down below talking about the private Travis King and this whole thing. I think it's from National Public Radio. It's a good article. It had all this information. It's down below. I will be back later with another video. You guys have a great Friday.